This video will highlight how to link a quiz or an exam to an outcome CLO. We have seen that with assignments, it is a very straightforward process. Outcome CLOs do not naturally link themselves or embed themselves within quizzes or exams. And so there's a few additional steps, although it can be done. So to do this, we're actually going to start in assignments. So we have exam 2. This is what we want to assign our outcome CLO to. But because we can't link outcome CLOs directly to an exam, we need to create a parallel assignment that we can connect them to. And so while in assignments, you're going to come up here and create a new assignment. You can name it whatever you want. I'm going to call it, say if I'm assessing CLO2, I will just say CLO2 assessment. We will assign points, so make sure you have points, but the points should be set to 0. You can put it wherever you want. I like to put it wherever my exam is going to be. So I'm going to group this with the other exams, just so it's linked with those. And then here, it says, do not count this assessment toward the final grade. You want to make sure that you click on that. And that means that even though you're creating an assignment, it won't factor into their grades. They're being graded on the exam. We don't want to create this additional assignment that might influence their grade because we're just using this for an assessment. Now under submission type, the default here is usually online, but we are going to click no submission because the students aren't going to upload anything. In fact, students won't even see this. And then once you're done, you're going to save and publish that assessment. So if we go back to assignments, you will see your CLO2 assessment. I like to drag it up and group it with whatever exam it is going to be assessing. So we're going to go back into that CLO2 assessment, and now you have the option to add a rubric. So if you click on add a rubric, we are going to find an outcome. I'm going to link it to CLO2. And then here I have the option of either leaving this selected or unchecking the box that says use this criterion for scoring. Because we don't want this to contribute to student scores, you will uncheck the box, and that doesn't add any point value to it. This is the rubric we created. When you open a rubric, it will by default give you at least one criteria. You can add additional ones too, but we don't need these criteria. All we want is the outcomes CLO. And so once we've done that, you can now click Create Rubric. And you've now created this rubric for CLO Assessment 2. When you go into your gradebook, you will find the new parallel assessment assignment that you made. Now, because I grouped it with exams and because I moved it under my assignment page next to exam 2, the two will actually be located next to each other in your gradebook. So here you can see CLO2 assessment. Your students can also see CLO2 assessment, but you can hide it from them. And to hide it, if you click on these 3 dots, you're going to click on the grade posting policy. Its default is to automatically post and are visible to students. If you change it to manually and save it, so now it's manual and it's hidden from your students. So at this stage, you have exam 2, and you see here's one student exam 2 score. And then next to that, you see your assessment. So it will be up to you to decide what exam score will correspond to your either exceeds mastery, which is 4 points, your mastery, which is 3 points, your near mastery, which is 2 points, or your not mastery, which is 1 point. And so what you can do after they've taken the exam is you can go in here and you could see, well, 30 out of 100, I would give that a score of 1. If a student gets 95, then you would probably give that a score of 4. Now, again, it's totally up to you how you could do that. So it's fairly straightforward. We've hidden this assessment. After the exam, you can go through and just correspond their score to an assessment grade that you're giving them on this outcomes CLO. After downloading your gradebook, imagine a scenario in which you have a large number of students as shown here. And you don't want to necessarily go through each one of these manually and entering a score and doing a calculation. So you can create a formula that will automatically insert a score of your choice. Now I'm going to type out the formula. You can copy it from the video description page. But first you create a table that is from, to, and then your assessment score. So from 0 to 64. So from 0 to 64, we can assign that a score of 1. Now, you can determine whatever range you would like for an assessment score of 1, which does not meet mastery. From 65 to 74, we would call that a 2. From 75 to 89, we call that a 3. And remember, a score of 3 in our assessment scale is a mastery. And then from 90 to 100 would be a score of 4, which exceeds mastery. So this is the table, and then we're going to use a lookup formula to evaluate whatever their exam score is, and then use this data to assign a score of either 1 through 4. So the formula we will use is going to be equals lookup. And when we're going to look it up, we're going to look up this exam score value in this column. So now it's directing it to, we're going to look at this score here, and then you insert a comma, and then we're going to direct it to this table. So by directing it to this table, if we just drag and create this range, it's going to say in these cells, in this case AA6 to AA9. That is our range. Now, because we're going to use the same table, but we're going to change and we're going to evaluate each of these scores, you need to lock the table in place using a cache symbol at both the cell column and the row. So the column is going to be the numbers, the column will be the letters, in this case AA, and the row will be here. And then we're also going to look up these values. So we separate each of these by a comma. And same thing, we're going to use the cache sign to lock them in place. So this is the lookup function. Now, there are probably other ways of doing this in Excel. So if you're familiar with another way, that is fine. What we really just want to do is say, okay, a score of 30, it fits within this range from 0 to 64. So we're going to assign a score of 1. And so when we insert that formula, we have the equals lookup, and then in parentheses, the cell where our exam score is. That one does not receive a cache sign because that is going to change. And then the cells, in this case, the low end of the score, or the low end of the exam score range, and then separated by another comma. And then this series is going to represent what score it should be looking up. So here, if it sees it's between 0 and 65, it's going to assign a score of 1. And so when we enter that value, there you get your 1. Now if we copy this cell and paste it here, you can look at it, it's doing the exact same thing, only now it's looking at this exam score and it's applying the exact same table that we have. So if you have a large class, you can just apply that formula to all of your scores. And now in this Excel sheet, which is an export of our gradebook, we have now assigned our CLO2 assessment. Once you're done with that, it's always a good idea because we're going to now import this back into Excel. I always copy this, and then if you do a paste special, we're going to paste just the value, because we want our Excel score to show the value, not necessarily that lookup formula that we had. And so once you do that, we have now taken an exam score. We now have our assessment score. You can delete this. And then if you save this spreadsheet and then import it back into your gradebook, it will assign all of these scores to your assessment, and you have now assessed your exam.